mistress a prison-like environment. That's not what I want for her. I am not in favor of medical detectors, but I am in favor of taking a soft target and fortifying it in the sense that you have an armed guard or several armed guards that are there that are able to respond to any threat. Again, mental, inside the school, it's a two-prong attack. The second part, again, is mental health guidance counselors, someone in that school that can, whether it's a teacher referral, whatever, is able to deal with any mental health threats that may surface.
This is sort of a two-part question here. There are several ways to look at this. The easy way is to take the budget of a school and say, what can we do to protect our students? And there are physical things that they can do very quickly. They can have safety glass in doors and windows, they can have self-locking doors, and you can have a very strong identification system. Those are things you can and should do. There are also training things that you should do. You should have an HIV officer, you should have intimidation, bullying, harassment officers, somebody that can be approached when you see another student that exhibits red flags. You have to have some kind of communication so that all the students and teachers are trained to identify students or anyone else that might be of concern. But all of these are stopgap measures. Yes, they're going to prevent a lot. But what is the real issue that we have? And the real issue that we have, once again, is the guns and the weapons that are brought into school. And so we have to focus again on a common ground, common sense solution to each of the issues that we have. And the common ground, common sense solution, again, is following the lead of all the brave students that we've seen in Parkland here today, following the lead and voting for only officials, only people that are going to make sure that they protect our students, and that's what I intend to do.
I will never advocate for metal detectors and security in our schools. I think that we need to strengthen our teachers, give them support in the classroom. We need to add mental health workers and other first responders who can deal with the crises that happen in schools. We also need to encourage and support administrators in schools to come up with effective protocols, because as we saw in Parkland, this student was known to many. He was elected most likely to shoot up a school. He was suspended. This is not a surprise. I just finished having a conversation with a young lady in middle school. There's a kid that has pictures of guns on his Facebook page and has a list. And he's been suspended, but he was allowed back into school. It's a matter of time. And if we hear about this at that school, then, there'll be the kids that weren't surprised, hopefully if they survive whatever happens in this school. So having armed guards in a school and creating fortresses is what many young students in communities of color in our country already live in Chicago and Detroit. I am not for the advocacy of that, because one of the things that I work so vigorously on is trying to impact that school to prison pipeline that happens in communities of color. And I don't want to see that in any community. So I am for the securing of additional mental health workers in our schools, for the resources for teachers to actually teach in our school, and if we have security officers in our school, really understanding what the safety plan is for students so that when they walk in those doors and they see a school safety officer, they know that they're protected. Because as we saw in Parkland, and as we see in other circumstances, sometimes when the shootings go down, people are not in the room until it dies down, and then everyone rushes in to go and be the protector. So we have to keep it real, we have to keep talking about this, and we have to come up with real viable solutions. But I am never for making our schools where our kids have to be a fortress. Thank you.
I think it's a combination of factors that we have to consider. One, I agree we need to have more psychological counseling. We have to have everyone in the schools aware of warning signs. I think there were plenty down in Parkland that were ignored or misinterpreted or misunderstood. Interestingly, when we were at West Essex High School that day, I was talking to a lot of students because, again, it's not necessarily what we up here on the stage want. It's also what the students, what makes them feel comfortable going to school. And believe it or not, a lot of them said they want metal detectors. They feel more comfortable that way. Now, whether I would want to go to a school that way or anyone up here would, that's not the question. The question is what will also give young adults in high school the comfort they need to go to school and feel confident that there's not going to be an incident. I do think that there should be guards, not at every, not around the perimeter, but certainly there should be a police officer stationed at entrances, and those entrances should require, should be locked, and should be, people should be escorted through the hallways if they're there for various reasons other than if they're a student, and even the students themselves. But again, this begs a question, and that question is the availability of assault rifles and automatic weapons. And if we can get those off the street, at least we're making a big, big step forward in reducing the possibility for a mass murder. True, you don't want anything to get into the school at all. Occasionally, unfortunately, it has happened in the past. Hopefully it never will in the future, but we're all more realistic. The only thing I'll leave you with is I do not believe teachers should have guns. I will tell you what my daughter said, who is a school teacher, which is, Dad, I have enough problems someday with a copying machine. I don't need a gun.
So I worked at one of my jobs in one of the tallest buildings in Manhattan on 53rd and Lex, Old Citigroup building. And that building went through some various safety and security measures after 9/11 happened to ensure that it was a safe place for people to work. I think we need to take a professional look at our schools and determine the best way to protect those buildings and to keep children safe. In the meantime, I do think having school safety officers, either retired cops or off-duty cops present, is a good idea. However, I'd like to ensure that we are getting federal grant money to keep our schools safe, because here in New Jersey we have the second best public school system in the nation, and so we really want to devote our resources to keeping our academics high in this state, and not devote them to school safety measures if at all possible. That said, I also think we should not have, the teachers should not be armed. So I have a lot of family members who are teachers, including my sister, who is about my size and teaches in the high school. And I was talking to her and a group of friends about arming teachers, and she said, she has a classroom where there are 13 boys in her classroom. And after everyone kind of got over how bad that classroom must really smell at the end of the day, we all agreed that arming my sister was not a great idea, because disarming my sister would be not that hard. And she's actually quite a good shot as well, and is very familiar with gun safety regulations. But really, we don't need to add more guns to the situation in our schools. Thanks.
As a teacher, this brings it home to me. I start off each one of my classes with current events. I have one of my students right in the second row there. And I started off, and I unfortunately have to do a school shooting now almost twice a year. This year it was Kentucky. We talked about Parkland. Last year was about Las Vegas. I know that was the school. But I've been doing this since 1999 with Columbine. And we've been talking about shootings, and I asked my students, well, what should we do? Should we have metal detectors? Would you want that? And a couple say yes, but most say no. They would say that would just make the perimeter smaller, but doesn't solve anything, right? They could shoot you before you get into the school as you're in the parking lot. So that wasn't a real good solution. But the thing to do is to go on with your life. I have never been threatened in school, but I did have an incident in 2013. I ran the Boston Marathon that year. And I finished, but my wife was on the street for about 15 minutes right before the bomb went off. And she was able to, obviously, she was okay, but that was frightening for us. But I think the message that we got was, okay, are we going to let that scare us for the rest of our lives? And we said no, and we've come back every year. And next Monday, a week from Monday, I will be there again, running the Boston Marathon. And I think that's the message we need to give to the young people, that we can't be afraid, that we can't let these people who have frightened us will win the day, that we have to take back our schools, we have to take back our lives, and continue to just go on despite what had happened to us in the past.